on the scene, and Chris Van Cleve is following that.
Tonight, investigators will work to recover video from the two outward-facing cameras and the train's data recorders. The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation. Vice Chair Bella Dinzar.
From the event recorder, we hope to get information such as speed and braking.
New Jersey Transit says the engineer, 48-year-old Thomas Gallagher, was in the front of the first car as it came speeding into the Hoboken station. The NTSB hopes to interview Gallagher and will reconstruct his last 72 hours, including a look at his medical history. Federal health screening requirements for train operators are among the lightest, requiring only a hearing and vision check every 3 years. The rest is up to the railroad. The NTSB has called for stronger standards.
We will look at whether there was positive train control installed and all of the aspects related to that before we come to any conclusion.
Railroads are under a federal mandate to install positive train control, or PTC technology, that can automatically slow or stop a speeding train to prevent collisions. This train did not have PTC technology. Congress pushed the deadline for installation to at least 2018. Federal regulators say New Jersey Transit is yet to submit a plan to install the expensive safety technology. Mark Rosenkerr chaired the NTSB when the PTSC requirement was enacted.
Positive train control, if all the mechanical systems were working properly, should have stopped this train because it was moving too fast through the station.
Now, these trains have an alerter, or sometimes called a dead man switch, that requires the operator to acknowledge an alarm at a regular interval, or that system will stop the train. Scott, at this point, New Jersey Transit won't say if that technology was in use.
Chris Van Cleve for us tonight. Chris, thank you.
Disturbing video shows the deadly end to a police chase in Louisiana when a 6-year-old boy was killed. We want to warn you that the video is graphic. A judge allowed the release of the body camera video showing 2 deputy city marshals in Marksville opening fire on an SUV last November. The driver was wounded, but his autistic son in the passenger seat was killed. The marshals face murder charges at an upcoming trial. David Begnaud is at the courthouse in Marksville. David, good morning.
Nora, good morning. The judge is also questioning a key claim from the defense that this vehicle posed an immediate danger to those marshals after the chase ended. But in deciding to release the video, the judge was quoted as saying, "I dare say it was not even close to being used as a deadly weapon at that time."
The body camera video starts in silence. It shows deputy city marshals in Marksville, Louisiana, chasing an SUV in November of last year. They claimed after the chase ended that the driver posed a threat when he backed his vehicle toward them, even though it appears the driver showed both hands to the officers. 2 marshals opened fire. They shot 18 rounds. 6-year-old Jeremy Martis, diagnosed with autism, was killed in the passenger seat, hit 5 times in the head and chest. His father was driving. Christopher Few was shot twice, but survived. Marshals Derek Stafford and Norris Greenhouse Jr. are charged with second-degree murder. Stafford is heard on tape saying he didn't know the boy was there.
I never saw a kid before, man.
Yeah, he's, the kid is...
I never saw a kid, bro. I was telling him to stop.
It's unclear when officers first checked on young Jeremy. You don't see an officer go to the passenger side until about 7 minutes after shots were fired.
Hey, bud. Hey, bud. Anybody else has gloves? You want to maybe pull that juvenile out and see if he...
Well, I hate to touch anything. I know till Caden gets it, man. I hate to... The only reason I'm doing him because he's the driving suspect.
That pulse.
Been working on it? He's got one?
This faint.
Paramedics arrived about 9 minutes after the shooting to take Few away in an ambulance.
You advise the juvenile deceased?
The defense is claiming that Christopher Few was driving recklessly and leading those marshals on a 2-mile chase. Charlie, it's worth noting the video that you just saw came from a 3rd officer at the scene that night who did not fire his weapon. He told investigators he didn't see a need to fire his weapon because he didn't fear for his life.
It's incredible and so hard to hear because it keeps happening.
Yeah, and another reason to show that you need those body cameras, because the body cameras tell one story and sometimes authorities tell another. Very important to have those cameras working.
Turning to another story, the FBI is urging states to make sure their voting registries are secure from hackers. Director James Comey told Congress yesterday that cyber hackers are still trying to break into U.S. voter databases At least 19 states have asked the Department of Homeland Security to help protect their voter registration systems. Officials are not saying which states have concerns. Jeff Pegues is in Washington, and he looks at the growing threat. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. First, it was Arizona and Illinois. Now, multiple law enforcement sources are telling CBS News that a total of about 10 states have had their systems probed or breached by hackers. We learned that information as government officials are becoming increasingly concerned about Russian efforts to disrupt or influence the election.
We are urging the states just to make sure that their deadbolts are thrown and their locks are on.
On Wednesday on Capitol Hill, lawmakers questioned FBI Director James Comey about whether the Russians were trying to breach U.S. election systems.
There have been a variety of scanning activities as well as some attempted intrusions at voter registration databases beyond those we knew about in July and August.
Officials have been reluctant to blame Russia publicly, but privately, cyber experts and government officials alike believe the Russian government or hackers working with it are behind the election system cyber attacks, and this brings hack on the Democratic National Committee. In an interview earlier this month, Russian President Vladimir Putin played coy when asked about his government's involvement in the DNC hack.
No, I don't know anything about that.
The U.S. has its own offensive and defensive cyber capabilities. The programs are highly classified. In a recent interview with CBS News, CIA Director John Brennan declined to offer specifics about whether the U.S. is using its cyber tools to respond to Russia. What about the U.S. capabilities?
There is different types of capabilities that the United States will have, and I'm not going to give you and your listeners a sense of the tools, and I choose not to.
A government official says the Russians like their cyber activity to grab headlines, and while these cyber strikes have been successful in accomplishing that goal, U.S. officials are confident that the outcome of the election will not be affected. While voter databases are accessible through the internet, most voting machines are not. Gail?
All right.
New details are emerging about the teenager accused of opening fire at a South Carolina elementary school. 2 6-year-old students and a teacher were shot yesterday. One of the children is in critical condition. A family friend of the accused gunman says the 14-year-old was suspended within the past 2 years for bringing a weapon to school. He had been homeschooled since then.
The teenager is in police custody this morning. Police say the alleged shooter killed his father at home before attacking the school. Manuel Bojorquez is at Townville Elementary School in South Carolina. That's about 100 miles northeast of Atlanta. Manuel, good morning.
Good morning. Classes are canceled here at Townville Elementary, where the gunman opened fire at about 1:45 yesterday afternoon. The school of nearly 300 students had practiced for such a scenario multiple times over the past several years, and investigators believe those active shooter drills helped prevent this shooting from becoming a lot worse.
Dozens of law enforcement officers began swarming Townville Elementary School 7 minutes after receiving a call that there was a gunman on campus.
The shooter's going to be a white male, all black clothing and blonde hair.
2 6-year-old students were shot, one in the leg, the other in the foot. Jacob Hall was airlifted to the hospital. A female teacher was also struck in the shoulder.
The shooter is a juvenile. He's a white male. There's no racial undertones there. There's no terrorism involved.
Police say the shooter, who was armed with a handgun, never entered the school. Volunteer firefighter Jamie Brock apprehended him and held him outside on the playground until police arrived.
And as y'all have heard, one of our firefighters did that and probably saved a lot more lives.
Police say the gunman began his rampage by shooting his father, 47-year-old Jeffrey Osborne, at the family's home. At about 1:44 p.m., the shooter called his grandmother and was emotional. When the grandparents visited the home, they discovered their son's body and their grandson gone. He had already driven to Townville Elementary, about 3 miles away. Frantic parents were alerted by text to come to the school as students were evacuated to a nearby church. Scott Nadolny rushed to meet his daughter Lacey.
And I saw her come out, and I just ran to her, crying. He just gave her a big hug. You know, just thankful.
6-year-old Jacob Hall remains in the hospital in critical condition. The other student and teacher who were injured were released from the hospital last night. Investigators said there is no known relationship between those victims and the suspected shooter. Gail?
As horrible as that is, so much to be thankful for today. Thank you very much, Manuel.
A mother from Townville, South Carolina was at work yesterday when she heard the news of a shooting at the elementary school. She later learned that her 14-year-old son is accused of killing her husband and wounding 2 students and a teacher. Manuel Bojorquez is there.
The teenage shooter opened fire near the playground just as students at Townville Elementary walked out of a door for afternoon recess. 2 6-year-olds and a teacher were hit by the bullets.
Yesterday, our community, we experienced a very devastating and life-changing event. We're going to feel this for a real long time.
Townville Fire Chief Billy McAdams, whose son attends the school, was first on the scene. Another firefighter, Jamie Brock, found the teen who had a handgun at the back of the school and pinned him down. First grader Jacob Hall was the most critically injured.
Please especially remember little Jacob, who continues to fight for his life. He's a hard little fighter, and you got to continue to remember that.
Police say the 14-year-old suspect, who has not been identified, shot and killed his father, 47-year-old Jeffrey Osborne, at their home before taking his father's truck and driving to the school. Administrators say the school had active shooter drills, including one just last week. 9-year-old Hayden Beasley says students knew this wasn't a drill.
Then I really would have panicked, and everybody else would have too, and the teachers would have too if they didn't have that training.
So that plan made a big difference. It's still unclear why the shooter may have targeted this playground. Administrators did confirm he previously attended the school but was recently being homeschooled. Scott, he is due in juvenile court tomorrow.
Manuel Bojorquez,
thanks.
Each day, more than 1.5 million people commute into Manhattan in a complex choreography that moves before the sun. But this morning, a New Jersey transit train that should have been crawling into its final stop instead bolted through a barrier and rammed into the waiting area of Hoboken Terminal, collapsing part of the century-old building. Only 1 person was killed, but 108 others, including the engineer, were injured. Jim Axelrod is in Hoboken, just across the Hudson from Manhattan.
It was the height of rush hour this morning. In a station 15,000 commuters pass through each day. When, at 8:45, chaos engulfed the New Jersey Transit Terminal in Hoboken. This is what train number 1614, stuffed with commuters, looked like as it approached. Eyewitnesses say it was moving at a high rate of speed when it failed to stop. As it entered the station, it continued beyond the tracks, sending the 4 cars crashing through a main concourse barrier, then launching airborne into the platform area. Inside the train, passengers like Kirby Fisher could not believe what was happening.
It was like a big crash, and then everything from the ceiling fell in.
Jamie Weatherhead Saul was in the first car.
Like, there wasn't even a screeching, like it was halting. It just kept going. The lights went off, and people started screaming, and it was like completely thrown from one area to the next. But because it was so crowded, there wasn't much where to go.
30 feet away, Michael Larson, a New Jersey Transit employee, was standing on the platform.
It was just initially just a horrendous exploding noise and concrete dust, electrical wires, and the train flying into the depot.
The one person killed, a woman from Hoboken, was not a passenger on the train, but was standing on the platform when she was hit by debris. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo.
We know what happened. We don't know why it happened. The train obviously came in at too high a rate of speed. It didn't stop. It went through the barriers. When you see the destruction up close, the silver lining is that there's only been 1 fatality thus far.
Others, like engineer William Blaine, looking for something hopeful amidst all the trauma, jumped in to help.
Kaboom! The whole place shook.
just shook, and everybody got quiet. When I turned and I ran out and I slid, I looked to the right, and I just saw people all over the ground and debris and everything all over the place. And it's like we were a family. When you say Americans, man, I'm not lying. Everybody at Pre-Color ran and tried to help.
That engineer who survived the crash, his name is Thomas Gallagher. He's 48 years old. He was taken to the hospital, but was later released. And tonight, Scott, we're told Mr. Gallagher is indeed cooperating with investigators.
Jim Axelrod at the scene of the crash tonight. Jim,
600 additional U.S. troops are being sent to Iraq to help in the fight against ISIS. The soldiers will be sent to Mosul to train and advise Iraqi forces, and not in a combat role. The move comes in response to the Iraqi Prime Minister's request for more support for his security forces. Iraq is planning to make a big push to recapture Mosul from ISIS. Mosul is the last of the group's strongholds in the country and its second largest
We are
city.
working with New Jersey Transit to assess the safety of the scene. The canopy of the building is on top of the controlling car, and water has been leaking all day, so there may be some structural damage and weakness. Additionally, because of the age of the building, there is the possibility of asbestos, so there are concerns about that as well. A contractor will be coming in to remove parts of the canopy, and that's with the goal of making the area safe for our investigation activities to continue. Once that is done, then we will be able to access the cars. We can currently access the locomotive, which is at the end of this train, and we'll be pulling the event recorder this evening. From the event recorder, we hope to get information such as speed and braking. We know that there were 3 passenger cars and a locomotive in a push-pull configuration. The engineer was operating the train from the cab car, also called the controlling car. We also know the train had outward-facing video recorders on both ends of the train, and we also will be recovering both of those. Our investigation will continue here on scene for 7 to 10 days. And our mission is to not just understand what happened, but to understand why it happened so that we can prevent it from happening again. So the engineer, as you may know, was injured. He's been released from the hospital, and we will be interviewing him.
Alright, Tier 4, also bring our units in off the road. We're going to need them here for crowd control and assistance. Send Seafolk and units. Alright, all units, area, home focus. Track number 5. The train that drove through the station, track into the platform area.